I was doing a lesson on Isaiah chapter 3, and I started to say something about me and my wife, and I decided it was worth having its own lesson on. And the idea is this, that there are some things between me and my wife, there are some things that I have an easier time with than she does. For instance, some people will tell you that some things need to be a certain way in every single household, and that's just not necessarily true. Um, a good example of this is that the wife should always be the one to stay at home and work with the children. This has pros and cons, it really does. Oftentimes, the man will have an easier time doing the day in and the day out being away from the house, and a woman will have a more emotionally difficult of a time. That's not always true. Um, it's good that children see their fathers working, and that you aren't lazy, whatever it is that you're doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave the house. That's implying that women are lazy if they don't leave the house for work. See what I mean? It's there's kind of some things in our thinking that are a little bit sexist and that don't really work in every single household. And part of that is my dog is I don't know if you can't see it. Um, and so part of that is, people, this is the way, and oftentimes we it's because of a religious experience, right? Like, I think that this is how it is, and of course I have verses to back up my view because, the Bible always agrees with me. And so this is what every household needs to do, and it just doesn't really work like that. Um, there are some things that I just do better than my wife, and there's some things that my wife just does better than me. I have a really hard time with diapers. Obviously there's those women out there right now, and even guys who are saying this, oh, just suck it up. Yeah. There are some things you're going to have an easier time with, and there's some things that your spouse is going to have an easier time with. Um, I I teach all of my children by the age of about 1 year to 13 months not to cry. And what I mean by that is not if they get actually hurt, but I mean that fussing thing. Ha, ha, ha. That's something that I work intentionally on every single one of my children. They learn to use their words to ask for something. But even if they don't know how to use the word, they won't be allowed to just and fuss for it. Whereas with my wife, she'll let them just sit there and whine and whine. Well, she'll be making the food and they'll be whining and fussing for it, and it's like, just calm down. Now she allows that to happen. I don't. I'm not saying one of us is right and one of us is wrong. I have an easier time doing that. She, on the other hand, can just tune it out. It doesn't bother her that they're sitting there whining and whining and whining. To me, it drives me up the wall. That's why I teach them at such an early age. you're not going to get away with that with me. And so we each have our own different strong suits. But then it comes to the toddlers. I have a much easier time with toddlers than my wife does. Children, in a large part, annoy my wife. Not all. I shouldn't say it like that. But like, for instance, she doesn't do real good with like kids church, for instance. So what ministry is she in? Kids church. She has a hard time with the idea of kids being kids, because kids are brats. Maybe you have like one kid or something, and you think, oh no, kids are perfect angels. Grow up, or get more kids, or go into a job like teaching. Kids are brats. That's just their nature. They're born as brats, and then they grow up, and if you don't nip it in the bud, they become brats as adults. Like, it's not rocket science. There's this idea that our kids are these empty vessels, and you just have to keep them free from contamination. That's just not true. People are born as jerks, and they have to be molded and shaped. And so when it comes to parenting, there's some things that I do better than my wife, and there's some things that my wife does better than me. And this is what I'm getting at. My point isn't a battle of the sexes, although a lot of people turn it into a battle of the sexes when it doesn't have to be. My point is very simple. Build on each other's strength. You and your spouse, build on each other's strength. Let me come back to, I have 2 points here, and I'll come back to the second one. But the first one, build on each other's strength. For instance, does one of you have a bad back? Or do your feet hurt? Well, then the other one should do the dishes. Is one of you more organized? Then that person should probably clean the house. See what I mean? And there's this idea that whoever works outside of the house, that they should just come home and vegetate. And the person who does not go outside of the house to work, that they're not really as hard of a worker. And so it's okay if they do things all the time and they never get a break. And so from sunup to sundown, they have to take care of the kids, clean the house, and all this other stuff. That doesn't work. Everybody needs a break. Everybody needs a day off, regardless of whether you work outside the house or in the house. I mean, everybody needs a break. That's something that you have to do. So in order to make this work, you have to find a system that works for you and your wife. Well, the husband should be in charge of the finances. I'm going to disagree with you. Because what I've seen is husbands nagging their wives, oh, you can't spend money on this and this and this, but then they go and spend money on all kinds of expensive stuff. How is that good? I mean, it's both of their money. It's one marriage. And this is exactly what the Bible teaches. It teaches a man and a woman leave the parents and they become one. This is another big thing why I don't believe in sex before marriage, is because, you need to have it where your parents are not running the relationship. And that can only happen in a marriage context where it's not just a fling. It's not just I'm moving in with them. It's a commitment that we are going to move through this. And then obviously you have to stick with the commitment. But, and then also just how many problems this causes with kids and running a house and stuff. If you've got like a boyfriend and you're trying to do the whole, or girlfriend, whatever, and you're trying to do the whole, that's really loud. And you're trying to do the whole, you do this and I do this. It's not going to work, because when you guys face any serious opposition, I mean, there's nothing holding you guys together. It's just like a verbal agreement is all it is. And so what happens if you guys break up? So there's a lot of different things there. So all these things come together. I know it seems like I'm going off on rabbit trails, but they're all very much related. Find a way to build on each other's strength as a married couple. Find a way to, work around people. For instance, let's say one of you gets sick when you're in the sun for too long and one of you doesn't. Well, who should do the yard work? See what I mean? Or if it's too strenuous, and let's say, for instance, the husband is the one who can't go out in the sun and it's too strenuous, go either really early in the morning or really late at night. Yes, your neighbors will get mad at you. But if that's the only thing you can do by physical problems, I mean, what are you going to do? You don't have another body. You can't just transfer your consciousness to another body. I mean, you're stuck. So, going back to the main idea of build on each other's strength. Find out what works. Should the husband be in charge of the finances if the wife is better with numbers? See what I mean? So yes, I would strongly encourage this. Whichever one is the better one with money, that you teach the other one how to do it too, because you got to plan for the future. And then you should probably also, take a class or something and see if you really are as good with finances as you think you are. When you have 3 or 4 loans and none of them are paid off and they're 30-year loans, I mean, these are kind of big deals that maybe you didn't think through. I mean, you see people do this with going to school, for instance, and not having the money for it. So now you have this huge chunk of, well, I had to hurry up and go to college when I couldn't afford it so that way I can pay on these loans for forever. And why? You can get a lot better paying a job without having all those loans from a trade school or from, working in people's yards or, maybe starting up your own business. I mean, there's just so many different things. But if you're not building on each other's strengths, you're never going to find out. So, me and my wife, we have ways of building on each other's strengths. And there's some things that I step in, maybe, for instance, if one of our kids is, just kind of being a little bit difficult, I oftentimes will be able to go in there and just smooth over the situation where my wife is happy and make it as happy, problem solved. See what I mean? But then sometimes it doesn't go like that. But you have to be aware of and so what that comes down to is there's just kind of this idea that we get in our heads, the right role for a man and a woman, which aren't always true. Now, obviously, there are some things that are true. Hey, that's not really something. For instance, the husband should really encourage spiritual development in the household. That's really something he should do. The husband really should protect the household. The whole provide thing doesn't really fit I mean, even if you look at human history, oftentimes the wife would help the husband in his job. Like, for instance, let's say he's a carpenter and the wife would help him, or a smith and she would help him, or a farmer and she would help him. So, I mean, historically, that doesn't really have any basis to it. The idea is that you're working together. So, yes, he should provide or at least contribute to the providing. But that's not to say that he's the only one who should be providing. Does that kind of make sense? It's kind of like giving your kids chores. They are, in a way, providing for the well-being of the house. And that's not a bad thing. You're teaching them, we're working together. That's a good thing. But so have a serious conversation with your spouse and kind of see what they're good at. And maybe think about redistributing who does what. Another thing is, don't use the Bible for your own sexist agenda. The wife should do this or the husband should do this, and then taking Bible verses out of context to kind of twist them. Like I just said that verse about husband and wife, coming together, being a team on stuff. And so now instead we're going to say, well, but this verse over here makes it clear that you should have no aspirations and no hopes or dreams, and you should just blindly follow me. And every time that I want to have sex, you need to have sex with me. You see what I mean? Like, hold on. You're taking this one verse that Paul wrote and neglecting everything else in the whole Bible. Paul used the same Old Testament that we have. Maybe you're misunderstanding what Paul wrote. Did that ever occur to you? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly misunderstand a verse that was written 2,000 years ago. I have perfect, complete understanding on everything, and God himself stands in awe of how much knowledge I have. Come on. If your wife is having a hard time with the laundry, for instance, maybe you could do the laundry. You both wear the clothes, right? And this doesn't have to be a thing about who's wearing the pants in the relationship. There's some people who just have an attitude problem. There's some people who just have an authority problem. And for them, they'll never be able to see their marriage partner as an equal thing, because they just don't get it. I mean, I deal with a lot of bitter women who don't get the idea of the husband and the wife helping each other. Well, I'll respect him so long as he, see what I mean? They just, and so because they don't have that clear understanding about what is equality and the chain of authority and all these different things, they have this idea of, tyrants and whatnot. And so they never really get past certain areas of growth in their relationship. Man, the stories I could tell, so what happens is you start sabotaging each other because, you're not going to tell me what to do, or, that's not your place, and all this stuff. And fights about stuff that don't have to be fights. You could just have an honest conversation about it, or... I'm trying to talk in generalities about specific things, and it's much harder than it looks. So, like, if one of you has a bad back, then the other one should be the one who does, like, maybe the dishes where you have to hunch over the sink. And don't be afraid of trying different things, trying new things. Maybe you did it in the past that way. Maybe you could try it in the future. Like, for instance, let's say you tried doing the whole going to school and getting a degree and getting a job that way. And let's say you both are just not happy with the results. Well, maybe instead of you doubling down and you trying something else, maybe what you could do is you could let them have a chance. Like maybe you tried the whole degree and getting a job in, like, business or something. And so now your spouse is like, hey, I want to try starting this business. Well, let them. See what I mean? You have to come to a point of saying, maybe, maybe we don't have to have everything cater around me. Maybe we don't have to have everything. And you see, husbands and wives both do this. Husbands do it in the area of their job. You have to cater around me and my job and my success. And the wife does the exact same thing. You have to cater around me and my personal whims and my emotions. See what I mean? How about we both come together and work together on stuff? Oh, well, I don't feel good. I don't think I did it. There has to be a coming together where you guys are honest with each other. You see each other's strengths instead of always seeing the weakness. And a lot of times the weaknesses that you're going to see aren't really weaknesses. They're just things that are different than you. Oh, well, my husband's a no good. Well, maybe he's just different than you. Oh, my fat, lazy wife, maybe she's just different than you. And you have to notice the strengths and try and play off of each other. Even a weakness can be turned into a positive thing. A lot of the times. Not always, but a lot of the times. And so, instead of going to this thing with this sexist agenda or your bias, go to it as a team and say, okay, this is what we got to get done. Can we take any of this out? Okay, now this is what's left. What can we divide up between the two of us where you do this and I do this? Okay, where are we going to have our play times? The times when we are able to just relax and not have something to do together. When are we going to have times when we do stuff with the kids? When are we going to, see what I mean? And divvying that up and saying, okay, here's my strong suits, here's your strong suits. I think these would go good here. What do you think? And, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try different things. Okay, so I tried this, it didn't work. How about you try this and I'll try this? I mean, there's got to be an area, and this is something that, I'll give you an example. My wife was responsible for the laundry. She did not do a good job. I mean, this is something she'll agree. There's nothing wrong with her. I'm just saying laundry was not her thing, definitely. She wouldn't do it until literally we were out of every single clothing in the whole house. And then she would do this huge mega loads that, was breaking the washer and then pile it up on the couch. And then she would never fold them. So then I started doing it where I was washing and drying them every single week on a set day, and I would have them on the couch ready for her to go. But then that didn't work out because she never got around to folding them. So then what I did was I said, okay, all right, let's try something else. See, now some people at this point would have stopped. You're just lazy. You need to do. Find each other's strengths. So what I did is I get all the clothes, I wash them, I dry them, I put them on the couch. Then I have baskets for different people. Then I separate the clothes for the different baskets. My wife's and I's clothes, my son's clothes, my daughter's clothes, my other daughter's clothes. See what I mean? They're all separated into their own baskets. And then I have them all fold their own laundry. I fold my laundry and my wife's, and oftentimes I will fold all the towels and the the mix match things that aren't really a person's, they're more like the houses, like the towels and the washcloths and so on. And then what we do is I say, okay, put up your basket. So now my wife comes and gets the basket and she puts up my clothes for me. Then she puts up her clothes. Then she puts up the towels. What is her strong suit? Her strong suit is organization. She's really good at it. She likes planning events. She doesn't like hosting events. She likes planning them. So do I have her host events? No, she's not good at hosting events. She's good at planning events. So I have her plan events. See the difference? Is she good at sticking with the laundry? No, she's terrible. She couldn't be worse at it. Is she good at knowing where stuff goes? Yes. Is she good at putting the stuff up? If I have it there ready to go? Yes. Well, that doesn't sound fair to me. Well, I mean, you don't have to do the same thing for you. I'm just saying you both have to come together and find a way to work together. Find your strengths. I do really good with schedules. I love making schedules. My wife hates them. Most of my wife's problems I could solve by her following my schedule. But if have been married, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's not going to work. So I follow my schedules. I do the laundry on a certain day and it's all ready to go. And then she does what she does. Hey, Gracie, here is this. Can you put them where they go? Ta-da! Problem solved. No fighting. No need to get bent out of shape. We're both happy with the results. There's no problem. So let's just do a real quick recap. People will tell you oftentimes in a religious setting that there are certain things that have to be done by the wife and certain things that have to be done by the husband. For instance, it's the wife's job to raise the children. Like a husband shouldn't be raising his children. It's the wife's job to do the dishes. It's the husband's job to work outside of the house. Maybe. And I'm definitely not saying you should be lazy and you should put it all off on your spouse where they're the ones who are responsible for everything. I'm definitely not saying that. But you do need to think about, what areas. And so, go to the Bible and say, okay, am I understanding this correctly? How could it possibly be that God doesn't want us to work together as a team, but that he wants me to squash my wife under me? How could it possibly be that God doesn't want me to respect and honor my husband, but He wants me to constantly say these nagging things and just tear him down all the time and badmouth him all the time and complain all the time to him? And think these things through. Oh, well, no, the husband should be doing all of that. Well, so you're saying that the wife should be incompetent? Oh, well, the husband should be doing, the wife should be doing all that. See what I mean? There's got to be a point when you just say, okay, let's go to this with our brains instead of with our traditions. And, I'm not saying, once again, that a wife should become a man and a husband should become a wife. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think genders have each their own strong strengths, but I think a lot of times things are attributed to gender that don't need to be. Like, for instance, the color purple is feminine. Why? Why is the color purple feminine? Has it always been feminine? No. And there's some things that, oh, well, that's just not the role of a husband, or that's just not the role of a wife. Historically, is that accurate? Is that accurate historically? Like I say, back in history, farming communities, husbands and wife would oftentimes work together in the field. If you read through Proverbs 31, you don't see anything that says she stays at home all day and succumbs to the husband's every whim. It talks about her during trade. It talks about her buying fields and planting in them and all kinds of different things. Oh, well, it's just a metaphor. Okay, so you're going to use the Bible just as much as it affirms your own personal belief? Anyways, and then be willing to try different things, where it's not all about you and your success and your future. It's both of y'all's success. So I hope that this was helpful. Sorry for my dog making all that noise and my chair's clicking. It's a gaming chair, and sometimes and my rooster. I'm sorry for that too. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry!